You don't have to worry about your bike moving beneath you, and that it's a safe time to do it. And the problem is, as you move forward from those bluffs, you might not get another drink for 10 or 15 minutes if it's that windy. And what I see when it's this windy is it's going to play into the favor of the athletes that have been pacing themselves properly and not throwing these large bombs. Like these athletes that are trying to get away from Patrick, they're putting all this effort to get away from Patrick. Patrick's not around anymore in the men's race, and then they're going to have to deal with those winds on the way back. And if they've done too much too early, it's going to be trouble. But an athlete like Lauren Brandon, who's riding her own race, she's setting herself up for a great start to finish bike ride.
There's a little bit of tactics we'll address here. I have to say as well, when you see Patrick Lenga as a two-time defending champion and he's hearing those splits, he is watching those guys ride away. He is watching it happen. He is seeing his race be stripped from him. He is losing time. He is watching Alistair go away. He is watching Frodeno go away. What happens is it just deflates. And so the tactic of going out hard has also now helped the downfall of Lenga. But let's just talk about this. So many people have done this race recently where we haven't had those crosswinds hitting you hard before you get to Kauai High. You're sitting pretty. The water is smooth and you're coasting your way out for that first 40 miles or that first segment of racing. You're really in a spot where it feels pretty good. If you've never felt the blast that hits you, as you said, Greg, off the funnel coming down between the mountains, it is a wake-up call. It is a rude awakening. They're going to have a second one here going up to Hawi, but right now we know the winds are up and Lenga is out.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, our next guest that's going to be joining us this morning, Mark Allen, in a few moments' time, he'll be able to talk to us about that because he has experienced that on multiple occasions. Mark has seen every one of those conditions out here. He's seen a benign, windless, breathless day. He's seen an extremely windy day. What he's watching right here is something that what I'm going to ask Mark Allen, I'm going to pose him the question. The pressure of a two-time defending champion, how hard that is to win 3 in a row. Mark Allen is one of the only guys that has won 3 races in a row, and now he joins us. So Mark Allen, the 6-time Ironman World Champion. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be here, guys. What a day that's unfolding. I'm excited to see the conditions like this because we haven't seen them for a while. You know, when they were coming down from Scenic Point and Frodo was just coasting from the tailwind. You know, when's the last time we saw anybody coasting from a tailwind at that point of the race? Which means that when they're on their way back, here comes the headwind.
And we called it a soft pedaling action, you know, there for a while because it was because of that tailwind. But we said also that the weather conditions have been, you know, quite benign over the last couple of years, especially last year when Patrick Lenga, our, two-time defending champion who, breaking news, we've just had to announce that he's withdrawn from the race. But those times were incredible. The first time that somebody went under the 8-hour barrier, which was absolutely amazing.
And since I've been here since 1982 every year, and I have never ever seen conditions like last year. People who were here for the first time were commenting. They said, "I thought the bike course was hard," and I said, "Yeah, come back next year and you might see something different." But as people are looking at the footage here, I think one of the things that really is standing out for me is how absolutely green it is. You know, the weather patterns are a little bit different than we've seen before. The folks who live here are saying they've had rain and rain and more rain and more rain and more rain. It makes it a different kind of race because, first of all, visually, it's not as harsh. You know, usually when we were in the old days, when we were climbing up to Hawi, when we were out there by Kauai High, it was stark brown, and that's very different than when you're riding through terrain like that that's had a lot of rain, which we had last night, which as the sun comes out will make it a little bit more uncomfortable, especially when they get to the run.
And they do say in between Kauai High and Hawi, there is 12 different microclimates up at this end of the island as well, so they get everything and they can get everything in one day.
Absolutely. Patrick Lange out, you mentioned that it's hard to come back and win 1, 2, 3 in a row. Certainly, it's a lot of pressure. Definitely a lot of pressure. You know, people just think that if you're a professional that you just plug some secret formula into your training calendar and that it all works out for you. But every single person, first to last, has a human body, and each year is going to be different, and maybe your body isn't responding the way you hope to get right here. You know, all throughout the week, people are asking who's going to win, who's going to get second, who's going to be on the, the podium, and we're still asking those same questions because we just don't know. Daniela, of anyone out there who knows how to race and win it in a lot of different scenarios, can do that. However, I don't think that she would want to be actually losing time right now. You know, she's patient, and if she has a gap out of the water, she doesn't race to close it. It's like she's two different athletes. You know, there's the first part of the bike where she's patient, where she's just kind of staying on it, but there's nothing spectacular happening. And then something happens around hobby when she starts to come back the other direction. It's like she clicks into something that is a completely different gear than any of the other women have. And in a sense, it gives, I think, the other women a bit of a... Daniela really starts to click into gears. Watch out.
And you saw what happened in Nice just 5 weeks ago. You were there live on site, and it wasn't until Daniela actually got to the farthest part of the Ironman 70.3 World Championship bike ride before she took her hands off the brakes, let it all hang out. She come back with a huge lead, and she held it all the way to the finish line. That's exactly how she races at Ironman as well. So the second half of each one of the disciplines is really where she makes a move.
Absolutely. She of any of the women knows how to pace this. She's actually... She has the ability, she's so strong on the bike that she has the ability to use that first half of the bike to just conserve energy. She doesn't need to make a big move. But when she does make that move, she knows that she's accelerating from that point all the way to the finish.
Super commentary, Mark. It's always a treat to have you here, and your experience on course really gives you a nice base, and then you're applying it to the current now. I have to agree. We'll be still trying to pick out this podium with 10 miles left on the run, 8 miles left on the run. For now, let me just set this. If you're Brownlee, Frodeno, Clavel, and Amberger with O'Donnell, that top five, you're the lead. You are starting to hear, maybe you've got that split to Lenga. And then there's that chase group, or you've heard about Lenga, but if you're getting a split to Sanders, Werf, Kienle, what's going on in your brain for this group?
I don't think they're very concerned about those guys, to be honest. Yeah, they're at the front, they're in the lead. The main thing that each one of these guys is going to be concerned about is to just try to keep the pace up, keep it strong, and not have any one of them out there in the front too much being the carrot, because even though there's no drafting effect, there's kind of like a psychological draft that happens when you're behind somebody, because they're sort of setting the pace. You can just kind of settle in like you're in the back seat of a car, you know, even though you're doing the effort, and physically it's the same, but you know, they will be trading. And we saw this earlier at one point when Frodo just kind of sat up and had Alistair come around him. You know, it's like, come on, guy, this is your first Ironman. You've won a couple gold medals, but you gotta do your work up here.
Starting to just look up to Daniela Ryf as well. And what about Natasha Bartman? I mean, it would be remiss of us not to talk about her in this conversation, winning 6 Ironman world titles when you're talking about Daniela Ryf going for number 5. But as we continue...
Jocelyn McCauley has been dropped from that group. She is now about 40 seconds behind that group. So again, we talked at the beginning. She was very aggressive in the beginning, leading that group. She's been dropped by that group. She's now 40 seconds back, sitting in 7th place. She's dropped 4 slots in that last time segment.
Yeah, last time segment being 6 miles, losing 40 seconds there. But as we continue up the road right now, you can see that figure there is Tim O'Donnell, Josh Amberger from Australia, sitting in 5th place right now, being very comfortable after the swim. So the little Australian, the pocket rocket, he's hanging on right there. Jan Frodeno, the 2-time Ironman world champion, continues the pace setting at the front. Maurice Clavel's been very impressive, and now Ali Brownlee does not want to miss a move. I did speak to him during the week, and he just said, I want to put myself in a position where I can cover things.
Absolutely. And, you know, I spoke with him a little bit on Thursday, and he said, you know, about 3 million people have told me that I need to be patient. Yeah. He goes, I get the message. And so clearly, you know, in South Africa at the Worlds 2 years ago, he was very aggressive at the front, trying to get away very early, and clearly here, he's just biding his time. He respects this distance. He clearly respects the island, and he knows that these guys know how to race it. Jan Frodeno, clearly he knows how to race it. And who has the most motivation here that's still in the race? Jan Frodeno, because he had 2 amazing years, and then the last 2 years, he's had, you know, he had the back things 2 years ago, didn't even get to the start line last year. I think he wants to look at his Palmeiras over the course of his career and add 1 more title.
What a great observation. I think he is the hungriest, most motivated. Debut, he did so great. But here's a look at that Ventum bike course. We've already covered the in-town section.